Last week's full moon was popping off and it left us exhausted, a little crazy, a little disoriented, and I think we saw a lot of very unhappy moments in our lives that we are still trying to work through and get our heart connected to new things that make us happy. So my question this week is, how do you really feel after this full moon? Welcome to your weekly AstroTea show. I am Aylin Sky, your go-to astrologer for astrology insights, numerology, and manifestation tools. I cut right through the noise and bring you the most important messages you need to know. Did the full moon bring up anything emotional or powerful for you? I know it did for me. I felt like that this full moon was definitely a big signifier of where we are repeating patterns that keep us really miserable, keep us really super attached to the money, attached to a certain outcome, attached to certain people. And then our need to absolutely disconnect from those things were very much highlighted. Now this week, the sun finishes up in Aquarius at 28 degrees on Sunday and 29 Monday, and then we're officially in Pisces season. So happy birthday to all my Pisces out there. The week starts out in Pisces season and goes from 0 to 5 degrees. This brings up some triggers, 100%. So I want everybody to make sure that you are preparing yourself. It's not that the sun is bringing up the triggers, it's that we are internally starting to move through our triggers. There is some communication between the sun and other planets this week that I believe that we have to kind of dig deep into our feelings a little bit more and also dig into our heritage, our values, our family ties. And it's sort of like a trigger happy week after this full moon. We're kind of coming off this full moon, realizing we had to detach from certain things. And now we're dealing with maybe some family issues or issues that bring up our upbringing and how we are relating to money, how we're relating to certain relationship patterns that keep coming up, and the traditions of those things and the deep-rooted values that are attached to it that may feel more intense this week. So expect triggers that challenge us to face what's really important. Chiron is squaring Mars retrograde in Cancer, bringing up deep, hurtful energy around our personal beliefs. So Mars is in Cancer, and it is motivated to point out hypocrisy and wounds. We're being called to stand up for our truth, but it can feel pretty petty and overwhelming at times. So there's a level of pettiness in this energy as well. You can have maybe conversations where somebody says something that they know is going to get underneath your skin. So with that comes up trust issues. The universe is pushing us to think about trust. Who do we trust? Black Moon, Lilith, and the Moon are highlighting themes of trust, showing us who and what we can rely on. And this week, you'll feel this energy the most, especially as Uranus opposes the mix, making us act unexpectedly and redirect our plans. Uranus is the key this week, though, because Uranus is helping us to really break free. I think that it's showing us that we need to act differently. We need to redirect our plans. And some of these plans are going to be an external thing that is happening outside of us, right? It's not always going to be, oh, you are the person that's acting out the Uranus flavor. Sometimes Uranus comes in from an outside perspective, an outside circumstance, and it opposes this mixture of trigger, this mixture of overwhelm, this pettiness, and it starts to redirect the plan. So if you are finding yourself upset about something that redirects the plans this week, you're feeling like, well, why is this happening? Just know that there is a very good reason behind that, and that is so that you can redirect your plans. So if you're feeling like you need to cancel or change something, don't be surprised and go into this energy, lean into this energy. You're just going with the flow towards what feels better right now. So if there is goals, especially that you're working on this week, and you find that you really have to redirect. You have to cancel those subscriptions, the plans, the circumstance with a friend, whatever it is. Just go in on it, because this is where you're redirecting your energy for a better outcome, but you might not be able to see the better outcome right now. The emotional themes and the relationship drama, I want to touch base on that for this week. So midweek, expect some relationship drama. This could be about abuse. It can be about abuse that comes from a motivation or intention that has something to do with wanting to make the other person feel what you're feeling. So there could be a deep sort of wanting to make sure that this person understands that you have left them in this heaviness, or you've left them in this, place where they have felt maybe some level of sadness or hurt or resentment. So you want to avoid this emotionally this week, because it can be pretty overwhelming. Like I said, this is a week where we're feeling really pulled towards the process of emotionally dealing with these things, but it's better to deal with them internally on your own or with somebody who is extremely supportive than to be confrontational with other people, just because of where the sun is moving through right now. It becomes a little bit easier in 2 to 3 weeks from now. We'll talk more about that. And also the stuff happening outside of us, right? There's a lot of stuff that's happening outside of us that can impact us very often. So it's a lot, but it's part of the cleansing process that we're in. And I want to highlight that, because sometimes when we're talking in astrology, it can be like this, oh my God, everything is, very emotional. Everything is very super dramatic. And we move through these currencies, and some of these currencies that we move through, they are intense, and that is where we're in right now. As the moon moves from Libra early this week into Scorpio, we're coming from a much hypersensitive type of energy into, okay, now there is an emotional processing, a deep processing that happens, an intensity that will lighten up, but midweek, we are in this intensity. We are looking for the emotional release. And this is very important. So know that by the time we hit the Sagittarius moon, which is going to be towards the end of this week, Friday, Saturday, things will be hopeful again, and they will be optimistic. But sometimes before we get there, we have to really confront internally certain things that bother us. And to do that, we need to be disconnected from other people. And it's okay if you are in this place where you're wanting to disconnect from other people. Now, the other thing that is really interesting to me for this week, because of Uranus being in the mix, because of people still being under the Mars retrograde energy, don't be surprised if you find out that you have been blocked by someone, or if a relationship dynamic continues to shift, pulling you apart, pulling you away from that relationship dynamic. The pressure to let go of something toxic is real this week. We're not done yet with the process of letting go and changing the things that they just don't feel good anymore, because this is what we're doing every single week, every single year. We are all becoming smarter. We're all becoming better and aware, and seek this awareness with the cycles that we're in, with the patterns that we're in. Some patterns are better, some patterns are more intense. And I would say that this pattern that we're in right now is a little bit more on the intense side. Speaking of pressure and speaking of intensity, and specifically about an energy that I believe represents this Mars in Cancer retrograde moment that we're in, is the insane Mr. Beast's Squid Game style show. I don't know if anybody has finished watching the last show, but let me give you a little bit of background. So Mr. Beast is one of the most famous YouTubers in the world. And he is known not only for his massive production, but also for his generosity. His latest show takes things to a whole new level. It's a Squid Game style-like competition where 1,000 contestants battled it out for a record-breaking $5 million. The biggest cash prize in any game show ever. Like the biggest, right? Like $5 million, think about that. Which, I don't want to give away what happens towards the end. If you're going to choose to watch this show, that price goes up a little bit. But what blew my mind about this show wasn't just the high stakes for the crazy challenges, it was the human psychology at play. At first, the contestants were kind, friendly, and really, really supportive. Like, I couldn't believe how nice people actually really were. But specifically the younger generation, who approached the game with a sense of naiveness, and the pressure kept building. And so you could see that at some point, as the pressure was building, the competition took a wild turn. The level of manipulation, the level of strategy, and the level of psychological warfare was insane to watch. There was one specific challenge, and I can't remember what episode this was, but they were all kind of locked into little cubes with 3 to 4 people, and they had to come to a joint decision on who could move on and who could not move on. And the psychological warfare to like watching it during that time was insane. It was insane to witness how much people are actually using almost like this level of knowing on how to influence somebody else, right? Like they recognize that you have weaker points and then they use that to their advantage. Like it kept me on my edge. It kept me on the edge of my seat is what I'm trying to say. So if you're into social experiments, you're into generational differences, or just want to see something insanely entertaining, I highly recommend watching this show. It's not just a game, it's a deep dive into human nature when millions of dollars are on the line. Now, before we close, don't forget to subscribe and send me your astrology questions for next week over on Instagram at Astro Sky Aylin. Also the same on TikTok, Astro Sky Aylin. Let's keep this conversation going. And as always, remember to trust the stars, keep manifesting, and stay true to yourself. See you next time. Have a wonderful week, everyone.